if someone's doing that and they're defending it, fine, no problem, kick them out, or at the very least make sure they face the consequences of their actions the same as you or I would if we were exposing all of our genitalia in public.
But assimilate or out you go. So this is the footage.
Brother, what are you doing, cuz? Cuz, what are you doing? Sorry? What are you doing? What do you mean? What are you doing, cuz? What are you f***ing doing? This is Australia. I know. Don't f***ing on the ground, you f***ing pig. Go! Get out of here! Right. What do you mean, right? Huh? You f***ing sicko? F***ing peeing on the ground. What is wrong with you? Huh? You're squatting. That's not how you pee, you f***ing weirdo.
The article just basically talks about the man unleashing a tirade on him and confronting him and whatnot. But, we talk about multiculturalism. We talk about, diversity is our strength and things like this. I believe everyone has a right to be outraged by this because, like, as we say, you're welcome to come here, but assimilate. The second you don't, out you go. I don't want Australia to become a place where we get stabbed every day like South Africa, we have public defecation like India or Pakistan or Bangladesh, or, we have to worry about women who are going to be murdered because they're not wearing a hijab. Like, these are imported cultural issues and they happen overseas, and I feel very bad for the people that suffer under them. But here in Australia, we do have a say and we have a right to be able to speak up about it. I don't want to import this shit. I really don't. And I have no problem with migration. I have no issue with other cultures, but assimilate or out you go.
And see, I agree with that. And Baz has jumped in here and says that's why you're wrong on immigration. I think you misunderstand where I'm at on immigration. If someone's doing that and they're defending it, fine, no problem, kick them out. Or at the very least make sure they face the consequences of their actions the same as you or I would if we were exposing all of our genitalia in public. Baz, you or I, we would get fined. We would get probably, remanded in custody for a night to teach us a lesson, that sort of thing. So they need to suffer the exact same consequences as anybody else. And if they're an immigrant and they're not a citizen, potentially deportation. I don't have a problem with that. What concerns me is when people say, we got a video of an Indian shitting on the ground, so therefore we have to stop Indian immigration. It's like, well, now hang on. Now you're treating people as a group rather than as individuals. And I believe, and I am a defender of individual human rights. Every single individual needs to be judged and treated on their individual merits. We don't punish one person for the actions of another. And just because they share, that they were born on that piece of dirt over there, remember, India is a huge place. There's a lot of people there. So this Indian was born over there. That Indian was born over there. They grew up in completely different cultures internally. They're entirely different people. But because we lumped them both together as India. And by the way, India was not a country until the English came along. It was the British that turned India into India. It didn't exist before then. It was a whole bunch of separate kingdoms that the British conquered and unified. But because they're on that patch of dirt, we go, we're not going to let that person in because that person shat on the ground. That's what I've got a problem with. The individual that shat on the ground, deal with them. 100% deal with them. And if dealing with them requires sending them home, yes, sure. If it's a case of an honor killing and dealing with them requires the death penalty, yes, sure. I'm all for law and order, but it has to be directed at the individual who is responsible, not at a group.
I agree with you in that sentiment, but where I think I might disagree with you is, yes, we deal with the individual, but this is a cultural issue. People who are coming here aren't assimilating. And we've just had both the Liberal Party and the Labor Party are working with India at the moment and talking about the India-Australian connection and how they want more people to come over. Isn't it interesting that lots of Indians want to come to Australia, but very few Australians want to go and migrate over to India? So it's not a two-way street, it's a one-way street. They're coming here. They have a population of 1.5 billion? Are we meant to home all these people? Is that what is that the current goal? And what I'm saying when it comes to immigration is it is too high. We've already talked about this. I don't want to keep going over the same points, but we're bringing in people who seem to not only understand how Australian life is, don't care. They don't care, right? And this defecation's one thing. The throwing away of the trash in the waterways is another thing. These are just handfuls of things that we've caught. How much is happening that we haven't caught? How much is going on that no one's talking about? That's my concern. If you want to come here, there should be a requirement to assimilate, and further to that, us as Australians should be able to have that conversation without being called a racist. I'm sorry, I don't care whether you're white or black. If you're publicly shitting on a nature strip, I have every right as an Australian citizen to call that out. That's not racism. It's not racism to condemn people who are publicly disposing of their rubbish in a creek. That's not racism. But the issue is this conversation always becomes a racist conversation because we're not allowed to discuss it.
Sure, and I feel like people are assuming that I'm defending things that I'm not defending. But should we be able to have the conversation? Yes, of course we should. Without being called a racist, yes, of course we should. But also, I believe in freedom of speech. So if someone wants to wrongly call you a racist or wrongly call me a racist, well, I believe they have the right to do that, and I have the right to tell them to fuck off. The issue here, though, is we turn around and we say, right, well, there's that Indian dude who's driving an Uber without the correct license, and there's that Indian dude who's shitting on the sidewalk, and there's that Indian dude who's taking trash into a creek. Okay, we see those people, all the rage bait gets picked up. This is why, by the way, some of these fake news outlets, the Noticer and other ones that just go for all this rage bait, this is why they do things like spreading the fake news that the person who made the video of the guy shitting on the footpath was arrested. Because they want to tap into that anger. They want to fuel that and feed that and turn this into a real division, not between people who don't shit on the footpath and people who do. That's where the division should be, right? But between anyone who's from Indian extraction and anyone who isn't. They want to try and drive that wedge deeper. So you've got a situation where I understand where you're coming from, but if you take that to its logical conclusion, well, we just end up in the rage bait category here, and we're lumping everyone together in the same basket and saying that everyone did the exact same thing. I remember when I went filming at King's Cross after the curfew came in, the 2 a.m. curfew, or the 11 p.m. curfew, 10 p.m. curfew was brought in after some people were King hit. They died in King hit attacks that happened at like 9:30, so the curfew wouldn't have even held. I went and did a video there, and I remember the stench of urine around King's Cross, the main intersection in King's Cross in Sydney. And I paid attention. The people pissing on the sides, on the bricks on the side of the pubs, they were not Indian migrants. All right. The thing is, you see some drunk piece of white trash pissing on the bricks somewhere. You don't pull your camera out and start recording him. You see someone else doing it, maybe you do pull your camera out. So, and then it gets picked up and it becomes rage bait and it fuels this kind of fire. So what we're not seeing are the however many there are Indians who are out there working jobs, raising kids, making sure their kids get educated and fed and what have you, and getting on with life. Now, my concern is if you allow the correct anger at the people who are very much doing the wrong thing and do very much need to be dealt with, if you allow that to be blown out of proportion and to become a wedge of division between that entire group of people, you've just made a bunch of enemies inside your own country. People who actually were assimilating. The ones who were learning the language, well, they're lumped in with the ones that weren't. The ones that were paying their own way and paying taxes and educating their kids and doing all the right things, they've just been lumped in with all the people who weren't. And now you've literally created the very division that feeds the kind of racism, feeds the kind of reactions. We talk about this all the time, Carly. If you wanted to create a race war, this is how you would do it. Well, this is the other side of it, where there are people who do want to create a race war and they're feeding it. They're giving you the rage bait and they want you to take that bait. All I'm saying is don't take the bait. Aim your righteous anger at the individual responsible. Don't allow the fact that that person had a certain skin color or a certain religion to then cloud your view of everyone.
I'm just going to bring up this story as well because this only happened, 6-7 months ago. This is the food delivery driver who urinated in the elevator in an apartments complex. And rightfully so, people are outraged about this. So it's certainly not a one-off. These are things, like I said, these are the stories that we hear. What about the stories that we don't hear? So my argument around this is also the conversation. As I've said, we can't have the conversation because it's deemed racist. But if we ourselves don't, like, you know, I'm going to bring this back to chicken in the noodle aisle. We have accepted mediocrity. We are okay with our public spaces degrading and decaying. We don't care that someone, you know, leaves their trolley aside. We don't care that someone leaves their rubbish on the ground. And this is just another manifestation of that. when people talk about what India looks like and what Bangladesh looks like, and it's overrun by waste, right? And you just need to go and look at any YouTube channel and they'll show you outside of certain areas, India has a huge issue with waste, with public defecation, and that's a cultural problem, right? And I don't even begin to like no, I couldn't know how you fix that. I don't know how you fix that with 1.5 billion people. I don't know, but I do know that here in Australia we have a way of doing things, and we need to, as Australians, not only hold the Indian migrants accountable and the Islamic migrants accountable for sure, but also we don't hold each other accountable. Like Australians do not care. And we see this all the time. And, this comes across to the youth crime thing. It's easy to say it's all Africans. Well, no, it's a social contagion now. It's white kids. It was white kids that stole our car. And the problem is whenever we want to have conversations around youth crime and, these kind of like pocket little things that we're talking about, whether it's the defecation or the urination, it always gets co-opted by race. And it's fatiguing and it's frustrating. It's cultural. This is a cultural problem. And it's cultural when we talk about youth crime because it's a social contagion. This is culture. We need to be able to have the conversation and take the race out of it. And if Australians can't sit there and call a spade and say, hey, our kids are just as bad, or hey, we also don't give a shit, then, and pointing the finger at a couple of Indians is a useless pursuit.
So this is another thing here. We look at India, we don't see the difference. Indians very much see the difference between each other. We look at Chinese, and we go, oh, you're Chinese. No. Are you Cantonese? Are you Mandarin? Which region are you from? Are you more from the Mongolian end? They are very racist internally against each other. And they see vast differences between their cultures internally against each other. So when we say, oh, Indians, which Indians do you mean? Because the point here being made by Channel Master is absolutely correct. You talk to a Brahmin and they will tell you the worst imaginable things about every other kind of Indian that isn't a Brahmin, right? Because they were the top caste. They were the ruling caste. They were the ones that literally shat on everybody else before the English came along, right? So again, when we're talking about cultures, well, which culture, which Indian culture are we talking about here? Because if you're talking about the Indian culture that shits on the street, I agree. We need to deal with that. We need to deal with those people. But if you're talking about the Indian culture that doesn't shit on the street, well, what's the problem? The problem is that you're not making a distinction between those two. You're not judging people as individuals.
So normally on a podcast like this, when you've got two people, one of them is the brains of the operation and the other one's the eye candy. In this case, I have to be both, which is, oi, excuse me, this one's, Carly, this one's about me. I have to be both.
It's actually about me.
Seriously, I have to be both, which means I need lots of coffee, lots of caffeine. So you can help me to get lots of caffeine by scanning that little QR code there so that I can just carry this podcast on my...
And subscribe because I'm ridiculously good
Seriously,
looking.
Carly, can you not... Wow. She's such a center of attention, isn't she? Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff.